India's rise is usually measured in people, technology, and economic growth. But those are only the visible layers. Behind them, a far larger transformation is taking place, one built from ports, railways, highways, energy networks, and digital infrastructure. The real question is not how fast India is growing, it is what system is being built underneath that growth. From the outside, India's infrastructure story looks familiar. Cities are expanding. Highways are multiplying. New airports and metro systems are changing how millions move. Ports are handling growing trade. But these projects are not isolated pieces. They are increasingly becoming parts of a much larger network designed to connect India's population, industries, and markets. But India's infrastructure advantage is not simply about building more. The deeper story is about connecting what already exists with what is being built next. A port becomes more valuable when railways can move cargo inland. A highway matters more when it reaches factories. And a digital network becomes more powerful when it connects the entire economic system. Behind India's rise is an infrastructure machine built around connectivity. Ports feed industrial zones. Dedicated freight corridors move cargo across long distances. Expressways connect production centers to markets. Airports accelerate high-value trade, and digital systems increasingly coordinate the movement of money, goods, and information. The power is in the connections between them. Then geography changes the equation. India sits at the center of the Indian Ocean, between major energy producers in the west and fast-growing markets in the east. Its coastline faces some of the world's busiest maritime routes. That position gives infrastructure a strategic purpose beyond domestic development. It can turn India into a bridge between global supply chains. That geographic advantage only matters if the physical network can handle it. So the transformation stretches from deep water ports to inland freight corridors, from expressways to industrial parks, and from airports to logistics hubs. The objective is simple: reduce the distance between production and the global market. The mechanism is easier to understand when you follow one shipment. It begins at a port, moves through a terminal, transfers onto rail or road, reaches an industrial center, and then travels toward consumers or another export gateway. Every connection removes friction. The strategic advantage comes from making the entire journey faster, cheaper, and more predictable. And this is where infrastructure becomes economic power. Better connectivity can lower logistics friction, attract factories, expand domestic markets, and make exports more competitive. Energy infrastructure adds another layer, supplying industry while India expands solar, power transmission, and other forms of generation. The network is becoming an economic engine in its own right. The result is a potential shift in India's strategic position. A country that can connect factories to ports, ports to shipping lanes, and energy to industry becomes harder to ignore. Infrastructure does not replace military or diplomatic power, but it can amplify them by giving a country greater economic resilience and a stronger role in regional trade. Now the picture becomes global. India's infrastructure is increasingly connected to international shipping, energy markets, technology supply chains, and manufacturing networks. Its position also makes it relevant to major strategic corridors linking Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. What happens inside India's infrastructure system can therefore affect networks far beyond its borders. But greater connectivity also creates competition. India operates in a region where trade routes, ports, energy supplies, and supply chains carry strategic importance. Other powers are also building their own networks. The challenge is no longer simply building infrastructure. It is ensuring that the infrastructure remains resilient, competitive, and connected to the right global corridors. But there is another layer that is easier to miss. India's infrastructure power is no longer purely physical. Digital public infrastructure, telecommunications, data networks, and digital payments are becoming part of the same economic architecture. The hidden system is evolving from roads and ports into a network that connects physical movement with digital coordination. This is why the world cares. India is not just a huge market. It is becoming a potential node connecting manufacturing, technology, energy, maritime trade, and digital services. For global companies, the infrastructure determines how efficiently they can operate. For governments, it influences resilience and strategic autonomy. And for global supply chains, India represents another major center of gravity. Over the next 5 to 15 years, this network could become even more important. Continued investment in transport, renewable energy, manufacturing, logistics, and digital systems may strengthen India's position in global supply chains. If these layers become more tightly integrated, India's infrastructure could evolve from a domestic growth platform into a larger strategic advantage. If that system succeeds, the consequences could extend far beyond India. More efficient logistics could reshape manufacturing routes. Stronger energy infrastructure could support industrial growth. More connected ports could alter regional trade patterns. And a larger role in global supply chains could give India greater influence over how the world's economy moves. So perhaps India's rise is not simply the story of a country becoming larger or richer. It is the story of a system becoming more connected. Ports, railways, highways, energy, factories, data, and digital networks are converging into one enormous infrastructure architecture. And that changes the opening question. The real story is not how India is rising. It is how the infrastructure beneath that rise could reshape the world around it.